MLB season's back. Opening day is Wednesday. And so we want to cover a little bit of MLB. There's been a lot of big moves going on. I believe in the past month, there's been over 10 $100+ million contracts given away. It's been some crazy money. I'm talking about probably billions of dollars being passed out in contracts just in the past month.
Yeah, for real. That's a real big deal, man. I think it's all changing to where we're like, man, if I ever had a son, I'd say fuck basketball, fuck football. Kyler Murray's probably making the worst decision of his life right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
These contracts that are going out is crazy. So let's dive into these a little bit, and we'll talk about the numbers and then what we are looking at for this year's MLB.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, these contracts have been nuts, man. We're talking Bryce Harper. He was the biggest free agent signing in the off season. He just signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, leaving the Washington Nationals. So rest in peace, Washington Nationals. Playoff chances.
Right. They were already terrible for a while, and now they're even worse. Now we're looking.
No doubt, man. I mean, he got a 13-year contract. It was the biggest contract in United States sports history. So it's the biggest free agent signing ever. 13 years, $330 million.
Whew.
$330 million. So he got himself that A-Rod money.
Real talk. What you're going to hear about, especially if you guys don't follow baseball, is the length of these contracts, though. I really wish I knew some of the intricacies of some of these contracts, because 13 years, that's a lot of commitment, bro. Like that's more commitment than J-Lo has given all of her husbands combined.
All of her engagements as well.
Yeah, dog.
She's been engaged like 6 times. You remember she put Ben Affleck in that music video, bro, when she was in love with Ben?
Yeah.
That was a troublesome phase. That was like a midlife crisis for J-Lo.
Oh my god, I had to throw that one in there. I had to have my jab because that shit's funny as hell. But yeah, man, look at these 33. You said 13 years, 330 million, and that's not even. Now that is the smallest of the bigger ones that has been acquired since then.
Yeah, so the biggest contract before all of this stuff that we're talking about, the biggest contract in MLB was signed in 2014-2015 offseason, and that was Giancarlo Stanton. He signed a $325 million extension. Then the second biggest contract ever just came on February 20th. That's when Manny Machado, he was a longtime Orioles player. He was on the Dodgers last year. He got traded to them at midseason. He was signed for $300 million for 10 years with the Padres on February 20th. Then we just talked about Bryce Harper's contract. Bryce Harper, former MLB or National League MVP, sorry. And just a couple of days ago, just last week, Mike Trout signs the biggest contract in sports history. He got a $430 million contract extension with the Los Angeles Angels. $430 million.
The California Angels, yeah. The just think about that, y'all. $430 million. The amount, the sheer. First of all, the commitment. The commitment to one person for such a long time.
I think it's 13 years.
Yeah, 13 years. And granted, we're talking about Mike Trout here. This guy is on pace to be one of the best, if not the best, baseball player of all time.
Right.
That's a lot. That's a lot to put on somebody's shoulders. But you have to give that. They're pretty much saying you have to give that kind of money for that kind of player. You get a once every 100-year kind of player. You're gonna have to do something. But 400, and we're basically talking $500 million almost that they are committing to one person for the next 13 years.
Yeah, and if you don't follow baseball too much and you follow football a lot, like the difference is in baseball, it's a guaranteed contract. He's guaranteed he's going to get paid that $430 million, and it's also there's no salary cap, so teams can basically spend however much they want.
Right. That's the big key there for MLB. There is no salary cap, so you're basically putting up your money against your team worth, like what your actual team's worth.
Right.
That's where your cap pretty much comes from. Outside of of course, you can't go under. It's got to obviously add up and make sense to where you're not losing any money, or you're basically under and you're red, because then obviously you got to shut down the organization. But I mean, again, we're talking, man, $430 million, and I know that
for 12 years.
It's 12 years. So sorry, we said 13 is for 12 years. So some of these players have signed 13-year deals and stuff like that. I know Nolan Arenado from the Rockies got an 8-year deal, and he's
over $100 million.
Yeah. Well, his total was 350 for his contract. So he got 350 million. This dude leveled up even more than that. Mike Trout got way more than that. And of course, that's just the buzz of everything. But my whole thing, and I'm thinking, is how do you afford other players? I understand locking down that one player. I get that. But how do you afford other players? How do you afford to put people around you when you can't afford them, when you got money tied up in a guy like that?
Yes.
So much money.
Yeah, so the problem becomes once you can no longer afford to have Mike Trout and you're in this contract with him, you have to trade him at some point if it's not working out. Obviously, if the team's winning, rings, you can invest more in other players because you're making more money on that end.
Right.
But if it comes time to that you need to trade a Mike Trout, there's only like 4 or 5 teams in the MLB every year that spend most of the money. Like,
right.
There's teams like the Oakland A's who can make the playoffs with the lowest bankroll in the league, but they're really smart. There's been movies made about how smart their management is,
Right. They're not going to break the bank and still get as far, if not further, than where the Angels are going to land. Because to me, again, Mike Trout's been in the league for 7 years, and he has not won a single playoff game. He's made it to the playoffs and got swept. So he's made it only one time, and he got his ass swept. So I don't care how good he is. If the rest of your team is garbage, it's kind of like the LeBron effect to an extent, except for LeBron has his own issues at this point. But it's kind of the same thing. You can't necessarily say you're going to win until you put other players around him.
Yeah, and they tried. They dropped the money on Albert Pujols.
An old-ass wash Pujols, though.
Right, exactly. They made a mistake.
Yeah, they made a huge mistake.
They tried.
Yeah.
Now they got to try harder, though, because you just put in half a bill.
You got to try real fucking hard, bro.
You putting half a bill on Mike Trout. But in the end, if they got to move on from him, then it's only going to make like the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Red Sox even stronger.
Right. Well, and then they said that they're going to try to rely on their farm system. They do got some good young players, but they're still not the best farm system in the MLB by any means. The Red Sox are clearly ahead of everybody else when we're talking about farm players. Just because their whole team literally in the last 4 years have been all pulled up from the minors and from farming. But I mean, they do at least got Ohtani. So I mean, they do have Ohtani out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like he could be a once in generational kind of player. I mean, he's crazy, but they got lucky to get on the sweepstakes. Everybody was on Ohtani. It was just like who could actually get him, and they got lucky to get him. So, but they got to keep him healthy.
Yes.
That's struggling when the guy just comes off of Tommy John surgery, and he's pitching and batting, and you're trying to keep him there and you're trying to keep him healthy. But I don't know if that's going to work out. I mean, he's going to DH this year. We'll see if he'll actually stay healthy. So he's supposedly supposed to be recovering from his Tommy Johns, but he's still going to be batting. So I don't see how that's going to help. But anyways, that's the kind of stuff. And you just like you said, you tied up almost $500 million, dog. Like, that's so much money. That is so much money in one person. If he gets injured, let's say he rips up his knee playing that outfield because he's an outfielder. Yeah. If he rips up his knee, bro, and of course, knock on wood, that's not what we're looking to have happen, but we're humans, and this is a human body, and these things do break down, and these things do break. There's not pretty much anybody like Cal Ripken Jr. anymore. There is no Iron Man in the game like that. Ichiro is the closest, and he just retired last week. So I don't know, man. For me, I would just have commitment issues when it comes to that. That's too much. That's too much time and too much money to put into one person. I understand the level of his greatness, but how far can you go if you can't put anybody around him because you're paying him literally like $200,000 every at bat? That's how much it like broke down to. It was like every at bat, it's like $265,000 per at bat. Like, what the fuck? How do you pay somebody that much money? Literally, all he has to do up there is just be in the lineup, and he's going to get paid, and so much money.
Is also a different beast, you know, when you think about how big this money really is. These guys are playing, you know, there's like 90 home games a year that each team has. So that's
right.
90 games of selling tickets compared to NFL where there's 8 home games in a season.
Right.
So that's why you know, you got to think of the money relative to that. Obviously, there's not as many fans at every MLB game, but you got to compare apples to apples. In that case, that's why MLB players get these ridiculous amounts of money.
Right. They play much longer. So, yeah, I would agree, you know, when it comes to the toughness of sports or whatever, you know, those guys are pretty tough because they got to play 180 games. Like, when you're playing 182 games, that's a lot of fucking games, dude. And, granted, they have rest days, but you're still playing, I would say at least the average for the player probably still plays at least 150 games.
Right.
Like, even with rest days and rest games, that's how much they're playing. Plus postseason. That doesn't even count into the postseason that's in there as well. That's all still included as well, and those can go very far. So, man, just nuts. These contracts that we're seeing. So we saw Machado, we've seen Trout, we've seen Bryce Harper and Arenado really clean up this year and make a lot of money. I know I've seen a pretty big extension. I think it was yesterday.
Goldschmidt.
Yeah, Goldschmidt was one, as well as
130 mil with I think for 5 years he got 130 mil with the Cardinals. He got traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. Fuck the Cardinals. I'm a Cubs fan. So
yeah, fuck the Cardinals. I've never liked the Cardinals either. They just seem like some cheaters and shit to me too. So fuck those guys. Jason Verlander too. He signed a pretty big contract extension. I believe $55 million. Yeah, 3-year contract. It's actually 3 to the Astros though. So that just added them. Like, boy,
he was with them. He was the MVP.
He was already with them.
Series MVP with the Astros when they won. The Astros are actually the favorites. They're second to be favorites to win the ALCS this year after the Boston Red Sox. Obviously, we know you're a big Red Sox fan.
Yes, I am. Big Red Sox.
You got them picked to win the AL this year again?
You're damn right. Our team ain't changed except for our closer, man.
The defending world champions?
We're defending world champions. We've been there 3 times in the last 5 years. We're definitely dominating, I think, when it comes to that. We just signed one of the most dominating pitchers as well, Chris Sale. We just agreed to terms in a 5-year contract for him on an extension to his deal. So now we got Chris Sale locked in, and I know that's going to be upwards of $150 million is what I was reading, somewhere in there. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely do see us in there. The Astros are always tough, though. I can't even lie. Between Cleveland and the Astros, they always give us fits. So if we end up playing one of them in the playoffs, like we did this last year, we definitely could lose to those guys. Like, I don't think we're clear winners. You know, I think we're definitely above. But when I'm looking at the AL, Cleveland always scares me. Houston always scares me. Those 2 teams, the Yankees to me are still very far out. I don't care how much money can buy them. Their coaching, as well as, you know, they're still pitching. Their pitching is whack. They did sign a pretty good pitcher this year. Pretty much right when the opening of the season came to the top, they actually grabbed a pretty good pitcher right out the gates. But I think they're still far behind when it comes to those teams.
James Paxton. They grabbed James Paxton.
Yeah, Paxton. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah,
I watched his numbers. His numbers are pretty solid. So I think
ace in Seattle.
Yeah, he was the ace in Seattle. So I think he's I think that they're still far away, though. They still need a few more players. They're still relying on Aroldis Chapman and stuff like that. And I think Aroldis has gotten past that. Everybody saw that star-studded on him, and they're like, nah. We exposed him pretty quick. He's not as good as everybody thought he was when he plays real competition. So that's a big thing. Yeah, to me, it's those teams when we look at the AL. I mean, it's going to be a toss-up between the Red Sox, the Cleveland Indians, who always have some type of good pitching and things like that, and the Houston Astros.
You got any wild card team, like any team that you think might exceed expectations that might come out of nowhere and do it?
I don't know if they're out of nowhere, but I feel like the Padres can make a deeper run this year with Machado, possibly. They always – I would say Colorado, and I love the Rockies too when I'm looking at we're talking about AL though, so we'll get to that.
Yeah, we can get to them. In the AL, I think the White Sox might be a surprise.
The White Sox
team.
leveled up.
They had a lot. They leveled up. They made some good free agent signings. They have a good young farm system that they've built up. They could be a little sleeper team. I don't know if they're quite playoff material at this point, or if they can, beat Cleveland to win the division. I think that's going to be a very difficult mountain to climb, but they could be a little sleeper team in there. And the other team, the Angels, they might be a sleeper if Albert Pujols can stay healthy and productive. He's been kind of shitty though, so can't really count on him doing it. Oakland, we kind of brought up earlier. They can always do it there in the West. The West is kind of open.
It's open to me. I think it's very open.
Yeah, and I like a couple of those good hitters on Oakland. Like Chris Davis is one of my favorite players in the league from the Oakland.
Chris Davis is nice. He's got a nice game to him. I think he's definitely a slept-on player.
Yeah,
but he's quietly doing numbers. I know he was batting about 300 last year, and he had a pretty good RBI and on base percentage and things like that. So
and over 40 homers 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I did see that. That's pretty good actually. So yeah, I think that's a good team as well. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean the Rangers could possibly get their stuff together. They seem to always be in the conversation towards the end of the year, like, oh, they might be a pretty good team, and then they always just end up falling off, like they shoot themselves in the foot. So it's kind of funny to always see them.
Gets too hot, man. Gets too hot in Houston in July, bro.
Right.
You gotta go to work and stand out there, like sit in that traffic on the way to the ballpark. It don't seem
they're not fucking with it.
Your AC don't work. And
there was a big move too that I forgot that I wanted to mention though, that I think that's really good for Cleveland, is they got Cargo. So they got Carlos Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Minor league deal, but that's a much needed bat. So that makes them that much more dangerous for Cleveland, because they needed that bat badly. They did not have that was kind of what they were missing. The pitching is always sound. Their pitching is always on point, but they don't really have the bats to carry them. And to me, adding Cargo definitely made that a possibility this year.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good signing by them. And let's go to the NL. You kind of touched on the Padres as being a sleeper team. The favorite in the NL, it's a little bit more open. These favorites aren't as big as the favorites in the AL were, but the top favorites right now is the Dodgers. They're number one.
Right.
Number two is the Phillies, who just got Bryce Harper. They had a couple of great young players that started hitting their strides last year. Then
right.
You're kind of looking at the Cubs and the Braves.
Yeah, you guys cut Bergman. I didn't think y'all were going to do that.
Yeah.
For the Cubs. So Paulie is. We kind of talked about it a couple of weeks ago. My man got it done in the year that they went to the World Series, and we play a lot of DraftKings and FanDuel stuff like that. And he won World Series tickets for taking first place on a DraftKings matchup basically, and took first place and got the tickets to go see that game. That was pretty dope, man.
Hell yeah.
I was really hyped for this guy.
Yeah, man. And I don't know, the Cubs haven't been really making any moves to make the team any better like they were in that run up. I think they're going to need to switch something up in order to win it all compared to these other teams that have been making moves and trying to stack up like the Phillies.
Yeah.
Like the Braves. And
I think the Royals will be in there too.
Yeah, the Royals are in the AL.
Oh, they're in the AL. Sorry, that was my other sleeper team I was thinking of. That's why I just said that. My bad.
But the Braves, they signed Josh Donaldson. The Phillies, they signed Bryce Harper. They also signed Andrew McCutchen. He kind of had he's kind of had a couple of shitty years. He
has, but I think he'll add. I think he still adds a lot to that team that didn't have a lot because the Phillies, if you remember, the Phillies weren't that far away from winning a title. They did, then they had Howard. When they had Brian Howard on the team, or Ryan Howard, on the team.
He was
such a beast, in a short amount of time. And they were really, really close. Their pitching was on point. And then he imploded, and then the rest of the team imploded, and they traded everybody. And then they've been in the shitter for the last several years. So now this is their chance to redeem themselves. And Bryce Harper said, I look to bring back a championship to the city of Philly. Even though that of course the Eagles just did it, but he's trying to bring it back for the baseball side of it as well.
Couldn't happen to a worse group of fans. Motherfuckers booed Santa Claus and shit.
Philly is a tough place to play, bro. If you're not doing anything, it doesn't matter what sport you're on. It's bad, yo.
It's just as easy that they could put a Bryce Harper statue in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen if they bring him a title. It might happen. Shit, they probably need to put a Nick Foles in there too, right next to Rocky.
Little big dick Nick statue right there.
Yeah, oh yeah, to bring the first one ever. You damn right. So yeah, I mean, it's oh man, I think the NL is a little trickier because, like you said, it's so much more open, and they're always like that.
So you brought up the Rockies. The Dodgers are the favorites.
Right.
The Diamondbacks have slipped now that they got rid of Goldschmidt. So
right.
Obviously, that gives the Rockies an edge to at least pass the Diamondbacks. But the Padres have signed Machado. They've been quietly making some moves as well. So can't completely count them out of it. That's going to be a pretty competitive division, the NL West.
I think that's going to honestly be that might be the best division in the NL this year, at least in my opinion. Besides your division as well,
the Central,
Paulie. Yeah,
it's going to be close.
Your guys' is usually a shit show too, and it's usually pretty close.
Yeah, and the Cardinals have beefed up their team as well. So, they've got, like we said, they signed Goldschmidt.
Yep.
To a contract. They traded
5-year deal.
Season. He's one of the best first basemen in the game by far. So that's going to be a scary move. They had some good young hitters last year that were doing it. But I think Phillies are definitely one of the teams to watch out for. They got that Rhys Hoskins was a rookie last year. He was a beast.
Yeah, man.
I think they added Carlos Santana from the Indians as well. So,
yeah, not the old guitarist.
He'll be at both of the Woodstock shows this year. You can catch him.
Right. You won't see him throwing the ball in the outfield.
He'll do the national anthem if the Warriors make the finals. I guarantee it. They've had him there every year.
Oh, yeah, that'd be dope. That'd be dope, though. Shout out to Santana. He's the shit.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the Braves definitely did a lot of moves. I kind of like the Braves too.
Yeah, Donaldson's a big move for them. So I know it's going to be really interesting. We're kind of focusing on the hitter end of things, and those are just our predictions basically on what way we see things going. We'll be talking about some MLB throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. I think and a lot of people. For me, honestly, I've been getting into baseball even more and more and more, and looking at more of the stats and things like that. And the stat game is crazy. So we're gonna try to bring some really cool like stat stuff up, so you guys can understand kind of the gravity of some of these games and how it's played and things like that. So stay tuned, definitely. For the baseball previews that we talk about, we might get some games of the week in there, those kinds of things. So yes, definitely stay tuned, man. We love all sports, and I know that we're going to definitely try to level up on that DraftKings shit too this year.
Gotta get that
Need that baseball money, bruh.
I need that baseball money too. Come on.
Real talk. All right, man. This is the Antidote Podcast Radio Show.